the CEO and co-founder of Satoshi Action Fund. Satoshi Action Fund is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that focuses on advocating for Bitcoin miners. What we do is we go and we say to politicians, regulators, and the general public, we say, hey, this technology has some incredible benefits to offer your community, to offer your region, to offer your state, to offer this country. And so we share those benefits. It seems to work pretty well. I'll get into a little bit of that here in a moment. But recently, our industry has come under attack. Many of you are probably aware of all the different angles that this industry is being attacked over. Environmental, energy, economic, it's a scam. You know, that SBF guy. It's like every time I go somewhere, I'm like, oh, I'm in the Bitcoin space. I advocate for Bitcoin miners. Like, oh, isn't that SBF guy? Like, didn't he just ruin the whole thing for y'all? Whew. It's a lot of work sometimes having to educate people about where we are as an industry. But we've come under incredible scrutiny these last 6 to 12 months. I mean, really ever since the last bull market, there's been a lot of attention. But when the bear market hit, it's like they knew that was the time to come swinging. We have some of the largest media outlets in the world. The New York Times coming after us. How many of you guys like the New York Times? Any big fans in here? Boo. Thank you. I heard one boo. Appreciate that. Boo. There we go. You're all supposed to boo, actually, at that moment. We've seen them come after Bitcoin mining. We've seen them tell everybody a story about how bad Bitcoin mining is for the environment. I mean, look at some of these numbers. You've got 90%, 92%, 96% carbon emitting. Some of these people are like plugging into windmills, and they're like, nah, that's green energy somebody else could have used. So actually you're carbon emitting, in fact. We've also seen letters from Congress, from senators. I got one of my senators up on here. I'm trying to tell him that Bitcoin mining is, in fact, has a ton of value to add. We've got 7 senators signing a letter saying that Bitcoin mining is bad, cause environmental problems. We even have one of them saying she's going to build a crypto army, anti-crypto army, to come after us. There we go. We also have the largest environmental organizations on the planet, the most well-known environmental organizations on the planet, telling us that Bitcoin mining is bad. We need to change the code. How many of you in here are going to change your code? Anybody? You ready to do proof of stake on your node? God. But where have we seen this before? Where have we seen this type of attack? Can anybody tell me any guesses where you've seen this sort of like all-out assault on an industry before? Moral, economic, talking about all the dangers of that industry? I'll tell you. Right here. Look no further than the marijuana industry. Remember these? I don't know if anybody of you are old enough to remember these ads. Some of them go back pretty far. Reefer madness. Weed from the devil's garden. What's the next one? Oh, watch out. Watch out. It'll cause insanity. It's a vice, degradation. The truth about marijuana, they tell you. We've even seen politicians attack the marijuana industry, attack the cannabis industry, coming after it with the full force of the government. The war on drugs. Does that remind you of something? Anti-crypto army, the war on drugs. These are the same things that have been used before. This is my favorite. I'm glad it didn't end up too blurry. If you smoke it, you will kill people. I don't know about you, but I've never killed anybody before. And that's not an admission, by the way, just for your heads up. But how did the cannabis industry get away from this? How did they escape? I'm up here to tell you, I'm not here to get your applause, although I would always appreciate applause. I'm not up here to give you the rah-rah speech. I'm up here to tell you, how do we as an industry progress forward and move past where we are today, where we're getting attacked by politicians, we're getting attacked by government, we're getting attacked by nonprofits, by environmental groups. I'm here to share that strategy with you because it's been done before. This is not a new idea. Although I can recognize patterns, I'm not creative enough to come up with a brand new political strategy to go after and tell everybody how important this technology is. This is not a trailblazing moment. This path is well worn by other industries and other groups. And even by an industry, the marijuana industry, the cannabis industry. You think we got it bad? It's a damn federal crime to possess, distribute, smoke marijuana. You can't even get a bank account. You got to bury your money in the ground. I'm from Portland, Oregon. I have friends that I know who way back in the day, they're like, listen, man, we just have pails of cash because we can't get access to the banks. It's wrong. But how did they progress forward? How did they get out of that? They advocated for the benefits of the industry. Sure, it's great to say, I should be able to do whatever I want. I should be able to smoke what I want. I should be able to use marijuana. It's great. It's got all these medical benefits, potentially. That's not really what made the big difference. What made the difference in the advocacy space, early 2010, they really started getting their strategy together, and they started to advocate not just for the medical benefits, but for the economic benefits, the societal benefits of letting the industry flourish. They talked about how the industry can bring millions of dollars of growth to communities. It can reduce crime, that it can increase tax basis in local communities. I mean, look at these numbers. $67 million in Colorado, $580 million in Washington in 1 year from taxing something that previously was illegal to use and possess. I'll tell you one thing. Policymakers, they love tax money coming in, but they really don't like to raise taxes a whole lot. I mean, that might sound crazy, but they much prefer find a new industry and collect money from that instead of going to you and saying, hey, we're going to raise your taxes. The reason why is because they know it's going to piss you off. But this new industry comes along, they absorb it in, they're able to raise a bunch of money, pay for schools, do all sorts of great things with it. One of the other things that they did, this is critical. If you don't hear me say anything else, listen to this part. One of the main reasons why the cannabis industry was successful in their path towards creating a legalized regime for them to be successful in the United States is they advocated for the industry at the state level. In 2012, just 2 years after they really started this brand new campaign to advocate for this industry, they tried to pass and legalize marijuana in 3 states, Washington, Oregon, and Colorado. Ultimately, 2 of those states, Washington and Colorado, legalized the industry. Really important point for them. Because the one thing about the United States that's different from everywhere else, we have this ability to advocate at the state level, unlike anywhere else. And when you do, you can what happens is these states, and I'll tell you, because I go to these offices, I talk to these elected officials, and they're saying, did anybody else do it yet? Where has this been successful in another state? They start to look and see where things have been successful, and they start to copy those other states and adopt those policies. So, in 2012, 2 states, that's it, passed pro-marijuana legislation, and just a little over a decade later, 78% of the country has pro-marijuana, pro-THC, pro-cannabis, whatever word you want to use, legislation on the books. They were able to overcome social stigmas. Oh, it's immoral. They were able to overcome the fact that it is a federal crime, still is a federal crime. Also able to overcome the fact they had no access to banks. There's some changes happening there, but it's still, to this day, very difficult to get access to banking, just basic banking services. And out of those that are left over, 5 of those 11 states that are still not legalizing, they're looking into it. They're like, oh man, we're going to miss out on this opportunity. We got to catch up with all these other states. One thing to keep in mind, they call it the laboratory of democracy because the best ideas float to the top. So when something starts to be successful in other states, all of a sudden you see states that were, even Texas, they failed this year to try to pass pro-marijuana legislation, but they're trying to get it done. Even in deep red states, this started in blue states, started in progressive states, and then it's moving into the deep red states of this country, despite all the things that it had to overcome. It's fine, I wanted to show you because I made this first one like 6 months ago, and you could see like Missouri and a couple other states have since then legalized marijuana. Missouri was the latest to legalize marijuana in that state. So, how do we achieve these same results? What did they do that we can learn from? What did they do that we can copy and we can bring on board to our industry? One that's been attacked, social stigma. Oh, I don't know about how many of you, but whenever I tell people, again, I'll go talk to people, oh, yeah, I'm in the Bitcoin mining industry. Oh, isn't that bad for the environment? Almost every time now. It's hitting the masses. It's hitting the general public. How could you, isn't that for scammers? Aren't you going to cause climate change to pick up? Why would you be into that? It's overcoming the fact that we're getting attacked politically. That's really important. You've got politicians. And it's really bad when you get politicians going out there attacking and doing it over and over and over again consistently. You want to know why Elizabeth Warren continues to attack our industry? Because people are donating to her every time she does that. And they're like, Elizabeth Warren is the leader on taking out these bad crypto people, these scammers, these people that are ruining the environment. So she's going to keep doing it until we can change that narrative. We're also facing these banking issues, these same banking issues. While it's not illegal to bank crypto, I don't know how many of you, I want to get a real quick raise of hands. I don't know if you all can pay attention for one quick second. This is an important poll. How many people here have had trouble getting access to banking? Business owners, access to banking. Anybody over here on the side? Have you had a hard time getting a bank account? Anybody been kicked out of their bank because they're a crypto company, blockchain company? Okay, we got some hands. So these are very important issues that we need to overcome as an industry. And there's a way that we can do it. We can advocate, just like the marijuana industry did, just like the cannabis industry did, for the benefits of this technology. And we know what those benefits are. We've all been talking about them for a long time now in this space. Well, what is that? We're going back to dog years and crypto again here. It's probably not been that long. The benefits of this technology is that it can provide energy benefits to the grid, to infrastructure. We know that Bitcoin mining is very good at balancing the grid. We've seen it balance the grid in Texas, where recently, during Winter Storm Elliott, there was a huge polar vortex that came down and knocked out energy infrastructure all over the state. Who was there? Ready, willing, able to wind down and deliver power back to the grid when ratepayers needed it most, when homeowners needed it most, when people that are trying to keep their homes warm to stay alive needed it most? The Bitcoin miners were. Bitcoin miners wound down and delivered up to 2,000 megawatts of power back to the grid in the middle of an emergency. Does anybody know how much power that is? 2,000 megawatts of power is enough energy to heat 2 million small homes. And that's in the middle of an emergency when no one else is willing to deliver that energy back. The miners were there, delivering power back to the grid. A lot of other energy benefits. Reduce wear and tear, improve ROI, all great things. It's got environmental benefits. We've seen over the last couple years that Bitcoin mining has been a powerful tool for reducing methane emissions. I know we've got some gas miners in the house today doing incredible work of reducing methane emissions and converting it to CO2, reducing the impact on the climate. This is huge. This is a huge story. You know, recently they have, I think it's 150 now, nations pledging to reduce their methane emissions. Almost every single time you go out and you try to reduce methane emissions, you're paying money. The government is paying money. There's a recent program, an orphaned oil well program that they did, where they're just giving money to the states saying, hey, if you plug these wells, we'll give you money. Turning that money printer on. Bitcoin miners can solve this problem and generate revenue. We've never seen that before. It's revenue generating climate tech. That doesn't exist, but it does now because of Bitcoin mining. Bitcoin mining can also reduce emissions from landfills. It can reduce the emissions from orphan wells. And because of the grid balancing impact of Bitcoin mining, we become less reliant on peaker plants. So incredibly valuable impacts on the environment. And it's all from one technology. It's all from one industry. And lastly, we've got the economic value of Bitcoin mining. Creating jobs in rural America. Creating jobs in communities that have been left behind. You are creating jobs in communities that have been left behind. You're creating jobs for people that don't have opportunity. I recently went to the Riot facility about a year ago and visited. And when I was there, I was talking to a gentleman named James. in his upper years, in his golden years, older gentleman. And I was drawn to him. He was smiling. He was like beaming. We were in their little like data center area where they kind of control the Bitcoin mine, right? It's a control center. I walk up to him. He's smiling, the biggest smile I've ever seen in my life. And I said, hey, you like your job here? He was like, absolutely. I said, well, what's it that you like so much about this job? He's like, well, many years ago, our community was built off another industry that came and they left. And we haven't had any opportunity here in this town for a long time. And I don't plan on going anywhere. But for the first time now, Riot was providing him a job, providing him an opportunity that no one else was providing. And this is the parts of the country that have been absolutely left behind by us moving all our manufacturing overseas. Now James has a job, and many other people do, in parts of this country that never had access to this type of opportunity before. And the greatest part, you got to remember this. These are the things I'm telling you, and it's important that you know this. These benefits. These are the benefits that you need to share with your policymakers and your regulators. Remember the things I'm telling you. There's a reason why I'm telling you these benefits. Because if you can remember them, you can repeat them to the people that matter. These are very specific benefits that matter, not just to you and me. They matter to our elected officials, to our policymakers. You tell them you can create jobs in rural America, they're like, tell me no more. Bring the Bitcoin miners. Oh, by the way, it's also going to reduce methane emissions. Like, stop while you're ahead. And like, oh, it's going to balance the grid too. They're about to start believing this is not even real. It's not even possible. It is possible. Remember these benefits. Share them with your policymakers. Share them with the general public so they understand the value of this technology. One important thing, one little note. We do have a booth out here. Looks like they're going to be opening up the expo here in just a moment, so thank you for being patient for that. If you go to booth 75, we're right next to our very good friends over at Hash House. We're going to have this one-pager. Got a bunch of copies. Please, go pick one up. It lists out all these benefits. Now, I don't expect you to get into an hour-long conversation with these policymakers telling them why Bitcoin mining is good for the grid, why it's good for energy, why it's good for the economy. But you can share this with them, and at the bottom there's information where they can reach out to us at Satoshi Action, and they can connect with us, and we can go into detail. We are expert educators on the benefits of Bitcoin mining. We spend quite a bit of time telling policymakers about it. In fact, we're so good at educating policymakers on Bitcoin mining. Just this year, we passed into law our Right to Mine bill in Montana and Arkansas. This is first of its kind policy, and we built it to protect Bitcoin miners, and we're already hearing stories of how this policy is protecting Bitcoin miners from discrimination. If you want to learn more about how it can protect you, I would please head over to booth 75. We have our policy director over there. We got some volunteers over there, and they can share with you about this policy and how it works to protect this industry. Advocating is not just about advocating for the benefits of the technology itself. It's also about advocating for the policy. So we do a lot of work with these policymakers, sharing what our policy can do for their community and how it protects the industry, but it doesn't just let bad actors run rampant. We are very, very keen on letting them know. We do not want to protect bad actors. We want to make sure we have good actors. And so thank you, first of all, to everyone in here who does behave properly, who is a good corporate citizen, who gives back to their community. There's going to be a lot of backlash coming for people that don't do that. So be very pleased. You make my job much harder when you move into communities and you start blaring sound and you don't do anything to mitigate it. These communities will backlash and they'll get the politicians to move against you. So please spend a little bit of extra money, mitigate the sound, engage with the community. It'll go a long way. So we're on the same path, as I said. We're following the same strategy as the cannabis industry. And in 2023, 4 states considered right to mine. We ultimately passed it in 2, Montana and Arkansas. We came razor close in Missouri. And we got some good progress in Mississippi. But because of the success that we've had, like I told you, remember earlier, When one state does something, the next state does something. And it was really important that we got a second state, because one state, they're like, oh, maybe you got lucky, right? Oh, you got lucky, you got one state. Two states are like, oh, okay, this is some real policy that's being passed. Ever since we passed this policy, this is how many states we're now talking to about passing pro-Bitcoin mining legislation in this country. And we don't just stop at our right to mine. We are developing policy that will set this industry into the next wave. One of those that I would like to highlight is our orphaned oil well policy. You got those gas miners here again. This policy will enable Bitcoin miners to go in and help to clean up orphaned and abandoned oil wells. Now, those of you that are in gas mining are probably like, man, there's not a whole lot of wells out there that you can produce on that are orphaned. That doesn't matter. If we get just even one well that gets impacted because of this policy, all of a sudden the narrative changes. Boom, you got an orphaned oil well policy passing. Then, immediately after, you have miners going in and cleaning up these locations that nobody wanted to clean up before. And then soon after that, you got news stories saying Bitcoin miners cleaning up the environment. That is switching the narrative, which is ultimately one of our most important goals at Satoshi Action. We want to change the narrative on Bitcoin mining. Lastly, and this is really important, we talked about this earlier, banking. Y'all have been discriminated against in many different ways. You've been kept out of banks. You've had your bank accounts lost. I had someone tell me the other day, a publicly traded Bitcoin miner, one of the biggest, they said they were kicked out after years of their bank. That's crazy. I talked to another miner just a few weeks ago. Only 10% of their business is Bitcoin mining. They're an energy company first. When Wells Fargo found out that they were Bitcoin mining, they kicked them out. And they closed all their personal accounts. That's insane. So, coming soon, you'll hear about this a little bit more tomorrow. We got a great panel that I'm going to be on. We've got our policy director hosting it. We've got someone here from Florida, the Office of Financial Regulation. We've also got the Deputy Attorney General of Oklahoma coming, and our senior fellow. We're going to talk a lot about how we're going to be tackling this problem and solving it to make sure that you are protected against any form of discrimination when it comes to banking policy. So, we will continue to fight. Satoshi Action has only been here for 1 year. This is our first year. 1 year anniversary was in June. We've had a lot of success. And the reason we've had a lot of success is not just because we like Bitcoin, we like Bitcoin mining, we care about it, we know the benefits. It's because we're following a very specific strategy, one that is time-tested, one that other industries have followed before, and one that other industries have been successful before with as well. You can already see that we're on that same path. We started with 2 states, almost identical. It's kind of funny. Had 4 states introduce it, 2 states pass it. Cannabis industry. 3 states introduced it, 2 states passed it. And then boom, 10 years later, the rest of the country is moving in the right direction for their industry. You know, I don't know where you stand on that political divide, but that industry, they won. They were successful. And we can do the same exact thing. If we stay persistent and consistent in advocating for the benefits of this technology in a clear-cut way with the right message, and we advocate for it at the state level. Now, last note here. I love my friends in D.C. We go to D.C. I've had some of you here that have joined me in D.C. We go there to educate, make sure they understand the value of the technology. But D.C. is not where we win this game. We win it in states like Florida. We win it in states like Texas. And we win it in states that want to see this technology come to their borders. And just like the cannabis industry, it's kind of flipped. We're going to start in the red states, and then we're going to move to the blue states. Because they're going to see, oh man, I can't miss out on that grid balancing, environmental cleanup, economic impact technology that's saving the planet. I want that in my state too. So, if you get an opportunity, please stop by booth 75 over there with our friends at Hash House. Pick up a one-pager that advocates for the benefits of Bitcoin mining. Share it with your policymaker. And then as soon as they connect with you and say, hey, we want to learn more, you'd be like, talk to Dennis Porter, talk to the people at Satoshi Action. They've passed public policy, they passed the right to mine, and they're going to be the ones that are going to be able to show you how to adopt this technology in your state. Thank you very much.